Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Watson Michael from Ceylon Institute of English and Leadership. And once again, we're glad to have Steve Silbiger back with us, right? So he's the author of the 10-day MBA, an international bestseller. How are you
Well,
doing?
thank thank you for having me back. I'm proud that the new book is coming out in July, the fifth edition, and so thank you for having me on your program.
Absolutely, right? So before I come to the first question, yeah, it has been translated into at least a dozen languages, your book, right? And when you told me, I was really happy to see the revised edition. So let's
So
go in.
at first it will be in English, and then the other foreign editions will come later, but it will start out in July in English,
Mm,
be available on Amazon.
great, great. So let's start with our first point, right?
Okay.
What are your view on cryptocurrencies? Because this topic is a hot topic and it's included in the fifth edition.
It certainly is. There's a whole section on it, and I call it cryptocurrency 101.
Okay.
I start at the very beginning of how Bitcoin was created uh,
Mm,
in 2009, at the very beginning, and what blockchain really is and how it
mm,
works. So I give the basics of what it is. And I find it a very exciting area, and it makes a lot of sense of what it is, the blockchain technology.
mm.
But the Bitcoin itself, the currencies, I'm not a big fan of. I'm not a
Okay.
big fan of the
Yeah.
cryptocurrency. I believe there's a whole lot of use for blockchain, uh, you know, in industry, in transportation, in many different areas to verify things with
Mm-hmm.
NFTs. But the actual Bitcoin itself doesn't really fit the criteria for a currency. A
Mm,
currency should be easily transmittable. It should be readily acceptable. It should
mm,
be transparent on who
mm.
and who is transferring it. Um, it should be very low cost to have a
Yeah.
currency. It should be extremely low cost. And a lot of those are not the case with Bitcoin for sure. It uses a tremendous amount of energy to mine
Mm,
Bitcoin. The technology, uh, you know, is subject to fraud. It's
mm.
subject to, as FTX, the major exchange of Bitcoin, fell
Yeah.
apart.
Yeah.
Coinbase and Binance as well have come under scrutiny. Um,
Mm.
I really don't get it. Uh,
Yeah.
um, there was a quote in the book after
Okay.
explain it, and I'll just see. This was from the Wall Street Journal in the fall, and it
Mm,
said, "Crypto coin is simply a gambling token dressed up as an investment asset."
mm.
So I'm not a big fan. Uh,
Yeah.
Obviously, when the music stops and the currency becomes worthless,
Mm,
which eventually it will, there's nothing there. But in the meantime, probably billions of dollars are going to be made and lost until that
mm.
point. So I'm not a big fan of it. Um, there were currencies called, that where the entire currency vanished
Yeah.
overnight. Somebody had a currency, all of a sudden it doesn't exist. Whole chunks of currency have
Mm,
disappeared on exchanges, and there's nobody to go after. It's gone. The main
mm.
value of the currency is to avoid sanctions, political sanctions. It's to trade illicit drugs. It's to facilitate illegal activity, money
Mm.
laundering, slavery. Um, there isn't a whole lot of positive to the
Mm.
currency, other than that it gives them enjoyment, winning and losing, such as gambling does. And
Mm.
who's to say, recently a Bitcoin is, over $40,000, you know,
Mm.
so who's to say one way or the other, but I don't believe it's based in reality. But the
Yeah.
blockchain technology has a lot of real uses in real terms, and that will survive what Bitcoin and Ethereum or Ether will become. But the coins themselves, I don't get it. I don't really get it. I'm a skeptic.
Mm.
And I talk about the good and the bad in the book. So
Yeah.
there's several pages in the book that talk about it. There was, for a brief period, there's something called stable coins, and that's where the
Mm.
coin is worth $1 because it's backed by real assets. Uh,
Yeah.
those are legitimate. That makes legitimate sense. But then there's other stable coins that are pegged to $1, but they're held to $1 because of an algorithm. They're tethered to the
Mm.
dollar, and some of the largest stable coins have fallen and became worthless. So
Mm.
that happened in 2022 and 2023 with Tether and USD coin, and there are several of those that shows there's not a lot of resilience to these. And
Mm.
and quite honestly, even Bitcoin itself, the programming for Bitcoin is done by a couple of dozen people, and the
Wow.
entire Bitcoin chain is maintained on a server at Microsoft. So there
Mm.
isn't a whole lot holding it up. It's very tenuous. So I think it's good to get, if you want to gamble with it, but I wouldn't put your
Mm.
life savings into it. That's
Mm.
my honest opinion. And I describe it in the book in several pages so that, my readers are informed, that type of
Yeah.
thing. But that's how I feel about it.
Wow. It's super insightful. Okay, right. So when you say about that, I have a feeling the concept might change, especially when the CBDC, the central bank digital currency, comes into action. We can see how interesting it will be. Yeah.
Yeah. But, even the US dollar, or a British pound, or a euro, or what have you, you know, they're made up by human beings. It's only as good as people think it's worth. They're not
Mm.
backed by gold or what have you, but they meet the other criteria of a currency. They're relatively stable. Uh, they are multiple backed. They're backed up. It's easy to transact as a currency. There's a trail. They're accountable and what have
Mm.
you. But all of those criteria aren't met by Bitcoin. It's not a stable currency. It doesn't have any of that accountability. It doesn't have any of that stability either. So it's not a really good store of value. And that's truly what a currency is. It's a store of value. And it doesn't have much of that.
Mm.
Mm.
Interesting. Yeah.
It sounds
So
like you're
now,
disappointed by that. Are you a fan of Bitcoin?
no, 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 no. See,
Okay.
I'm not a fan of any cryptocurrencies, right? But basically, you might have seen me disappointed because it's not a disappointment. It's a bit of a like because the way you articulated, the way you emphasized it, Steve, it was very clear, right? So like I was just thinking about some people like who do not use their head properly and they take a lot of money and they put it in these types of things who don't know a ball about it. But ultimately they end up losing so much money. So I was just thinking, and I feel sorry about it. That's why, right? Because I'm no fan of crypto. All right, okay.
Okay. See, it's something to gamble on. It's a gambling token, basically, because there's really nothing behind it and you can't use it for much, other than, black market activities. There's not much to it. I can't go buy a house with crypto. It's not easily converted. It's not efficiently traded. I mean,
Mm,
it doesn't hit any of the criteria. And I describe what currencies are in the book, and especially, I just have it here, the actual new
mm,
book. It's on page 332, Cryptocurrency 101, and I explain it. And it's interesting. There's been billionaires. you know Sam Bankman-Fried was a multi-billionaire on paper.
mm.
Yeah, a multi-billionaire. Now it's zero. So the only value that he has taken from his cryptocurrency is the amount of cryptocurrency he actually sold, converted to dollars, and is sitting in several banks. So that's
Yeah,
all he has. So there you go. And he was
yeah.
the king of crypto.
Crazy. I mean, I think after Sam's incident, I don't think the crypto industry will ever be the same again.
Probably not. But
Mm.
something that so many people, it's worth about $1 trillion, all the cryptocurrency in the world. you know it's not going to die soon. It's gonna be around with us for quite a while.
Mm, absolutely. So now, getting back to the next one, right? AI is
Yes.
supposed to, yeah, AI is supposed to become a $1 trillion industry. Many sources say within a decade. So
Yeah.
now, if we segregate generative AI, it seems the generative AI can reach the $1 trillion market by 2032 alone. So that's what I read on Bloomberg. What do you think about this?
um I've used it. It's extremely useful. um it's a great tool. um but as a tool, it needs supervision, because it only knows what is fed into it. uh And so I've used the tool for research for the book.
Mm,
I've used it. I have not written the book using AI, but I have
mm,
definitely used the tool at work. It if I need to research a topic, I can write a regular tell me
mm,
about this, and it gives you well written paragraphs and essays on whatever you're looking for. Although you have
mm.
to check the sources, because sometimes those
Yeah.
sources are made up, they're not real.
Mm,
Um, as an example, I used Bard, which is the AI chat box of Google, and I asked it to, hey, I went and asked, how is Top Dog Direct, the company that I work for, is it a good company? And it wrote several paragraphs how it's a good company and what it does. And then it gave some testimonials from several people. One of them was
mm,
real, but the other three were completely made up. They weren't real
mm,
people. So you need to supervise it. Um, I did some research about cat behavior,
okay.
and it it didn't know, for instance, that toilet paper is soft, but
Mm,
newspaper is crinkly, because it doesn't
mm,
have a sense. I was doing some research about crazy things that cats do when they're
mm.
left alone in your apartment. And they like
Yeah.
to go into the bathroom and play with the toilet paper. And the AI bot said, yes, cats love playing with the toilet paper roll, and they love the crunchy sound of the paper. Well, the AI doesn't know that toilet paper is soft and newspaper is crinkly because it's a computer. It gets things mixed up. So it needs supervision. It's not creative, but it does a lot of good, you know, repetitive tasks. It synthesizes information really well. So, for instance, in customer service, there's so many questions that are asked from customers about a certain product, maybe 100 of them. And once the AI has all those questions and how they were answered by real agents and they have it down, then all of a sudden a bot could be put in and you can ask it anything because all the questions have been answered and you don't need a live customer service agent. And there's many different ways that you can use AI. It's going to be a great tool. It's only going to get better as it gets used. And the only downside is a lot of the information that's being used to train it is copyrighted information. And so there's a whole thing that exactly, was it yesterday? The New York Times sued Microsoft
Yes,
and
yeah.
ChatGPT because they said, you put all of our newspaper, our back issues into your AI model. So now you're using our materials that we own to answer questions in your model and you didn't pay for it. And eventually, if a newspaper or magazine or an author isn't paid for what they do, there won't be any new newspapers. There won't be any new shows. There won't be any of that. And there was the strike of writers that just recently occurred. And it was based off how do people get compensated when their scripts are entered into an AI platform so that you can ask an AI bot to write a script or write an article or what have you. It's fraught with a lot of dangers, but it's really a technology that can be used for a lot of good purposes, especially in business. I write about it, it's in the book, in the operations. I'm just looking at it right here. So I write about it. I talk about deep learning and how the technologies work. And it's interesting, the metaverse also in the same area, it started out like the whole world's going to the metaverse. Everything's about the metaverse, right? And where's the metaverse? It didn't pan out. It's not around. People were super excited about it, but it really didn't do anything for us. It didn't really enhance our experiences. AI, on the other hand, really does work, and it works today, and it works well. So it's the complete opposite of the metaverse. 2 years ago, you thought, like we're talking about AI, everybody was talking about the metaverse. The metaverse hasn't come, and maybe it will. Maybe people will be putting on goggles and living in another world, maybe for games, that type of thing. But it just didn't pan out. But AI really has. It really does work.
Yeah, pretty true. I mean, already we are seeing AI revolutionizing our world. So yeah.
It's helpful
No,
in so many. It's helpful in so many ways. I mean, analyzing consumer behavior, doing the task of looking at X-rays for people with cancer, dealing with medical issues like that. It has such a huge, I don't know, vast knowledge of what's put into it, and it finds patterns. It works on those type of things, and it works really well. Um, but it has limitations. It needs to be policed. It needs to be used prudently. And just like I said, sometimes it makes up stuff. They call that hallucinations, but it makes up stuff. So you can't write laws with it. You can't do legal briefs with it. It can be a tool It's a great tool, but it needs a smart person to see the output makes sense, because it's ultimately it's a computer and it doesn't have a brain.
Mm, very true. Very true. So now looking at that, like, there is large language models, right? So it seems to be replacing certain types of jobs. Like now in the early 90s, people need computer literacy to join the corporate workforce. But now, if you look at it, in most corporate jobs, computer literacy is mandatory. So I feel that AI skills might become mandatory in some jobs within a decade, like a programming language, maybe like Python or something similar. What do you think about that?
Well, as you know, AI can be used to write programming language. It's a tool.
Mm,
So you could actually write really, and people use the code so that the, you know, if you ever written code, and I don't know if you've been involved with it, but there's different tasks that are done to perform tasks. And using AI, it can create the tasks and then the programmer pulls them together. So you don't have to do the hardest grunt work, because AI will do it, but it needs a person who knows how to code to put it all
mm,
together. And I've seen it done, and it's an amazing tool. Just it's like using different modules of programming, and it puts it together, but it takes a programmer to know what to ask. Actually, the knowledge of how to use AI is a skill to know how to use it properly. And the when the other parts, even when you're writing or you're doing inquiry, there's a way, even like doing Google searches, you ask it a big question and you go, oh, that's interesting, and then you ask it a more pointed question, and then a
mm-hmm.
more pointed question, and then all of a sudden you're getting extremely detailed answers that solve your problem. So it takes a good operator of AI to use it properly. It just kind of like searching on the internet in the past. You had to know how to use proper syntax to get the right results. I even talk about
Yeah,
that in the book, actually.
yeah, because from what you say here, like I feel that AI, the LLMs and all, the large language models, we might see it disrupting like certain things, okay, small basic jobs and all, like people they'll find a automation way of getting it done, right? So yeah, I mean,
You could you could be a repair person, like say for instance, uh, you have a machine that doesn't work, your card isn't working, and you tell the AI, hey, I'm having this symptoms, and this. What do you think is wrong with the car? And it will tell you what it thinks could be the problems, just like it can analyze using cases of humans being sick. You would give the AI model the symptoms of a problem, and it will tell you the possibilities of what illness it may be. And then once it gives you the illness, you could ask it, what treatment would you want to give this person? And it will give you the possibilities of treatment, and then might ask it, yeah, if that's the treatment, are there other drugs that I may take? And then it will tell you that. And then you may ask it, well, other than drugs, is there physical therapy, or there's non-prescription drugs available? You can ask it anything in the world and get answers to it, and it's a wonderful tool if used properly.
absolutely, I totally agree with you, right? But yeah, it's let wait and see how it comes. Yeah, right. So with now with the climate change, okay, going on,
Yes.
many things are changing, right? So India recently banned certain types of rice exports, and if I'm not mistaken, some onions as well, right? So, and the
Okay.
global oil prices have gone up in Europe due to the extreme heat, right? So there are droughts in US lakes and rivers as well. So what are your views in general?
Uh, the way the world is currently working, the largest polluters in the world are India and China. Uh, Although a lot of the pollution they create is to create product for the Western world, it takes world cooperation, and this world is not big on world cooperation or sacrifice.
Mm.
So I believe climate change is going to be with us, and we're just going to have to deal with it.
Mm,
It's only
mm,
it's only going to get worse. So I can't imagine. I mean, the current talk about climate change is to cap in 2050, maybe to cut our emissions or the growth of our emissions.
mm.
You know, are we really going to do that? Will anybody make a sacrifice for somebody else if it's not directly affecting them? Miami Beach goes
Mm.
underwater generally, but the Republican and conservative people in Florida aren't accepting climate change or changes to
Mm.
climate change. The answer is to build them on higher platforms or build them on stilts, but nobody's really cooperating and really making a dent in it. You know,
Yeah.
the the only pause that we've had as a world in our pollution making was during COVID. Pretty much. People didn't drive, people weren't
Mm.
out, people weren't consuming. I mean, we really cut down emissions tremendously.
Yeah.
And did it really change anything in any major? No, we went right back to what we were doing. Um, in another in other thoughts are, we're talking about having everybody have electric cars. Well,
Mm.
electricity has to be generated somehow.
Mm.
Okay, what fossil fuel was needed, or atomic fuel was needed to create that electricity, or what
Mm.
environmental damage is created by creating all those batteries, all the mining that takes to actually create all those batteries. And then, it's a tough one. I'm not
Mm.
optimistic. I'm not optimistic at all about it. I don't think people, they don't react. They don't cooperate in such a global situation. Only in science fiction does do the nations of the world cooperate. Yeah, the United States, our biggest issue in the United States now in the last few weeks is immigration coming from South and Central America. I mean, people aren't talking about climate change. People are not making sacrifices for climate change. It's a
Mm.
concern, but it's way, way down the priority list. That's my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah. So yeah, talking about that, Steve. Yeah, I mean, like it's pretty crazy. I mean, with things going on and emitting and all, right? So I like even the US emits a lot of CO2 into the atmosphere, right? And if you look at now some places, I was just doing some research, right, about these EV cars and all. Okay, so there's so much of wasted EV vehicles that they are across in China, right? So there is some people, if I'm not mistaken, China is they are leading in recycling these lithium-ion batteries. Okay, so that is something which is I think even the Europe and the US could look at doing waste management properly because it can contribute to a country's GDP, right? But not many people are doing waste management properly. It's a bit sad. that's something which many people can, which companies can look at. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
we had some technical problems just for a second.
yeah. We are okay. We are okay. We are back.
Okay.
Right. Great. Okay. So yeah. So recently, Steve, now Walmart. Okay, they turned to skills-based hiring,
Yes.
and now interestingly, the demand for wind turbine technicians is on the rise across US. Okay, and if you look at overtime and everything, you can pay up to $80,000 a year, whereas
Hmm.
they don't require a degree, right? So, like if we have the determination, anybody can improve on a relevant skill. So, what are your thoughts on skills-based hiring?
Is it working?
Yep, yep, all good.
Okay, we're back on.
Yeah, we are live. We are live.
Okay. Okay. Let me just make sure it works. Uh, it kind of, yeah. Yeah, my camera, I don't see it here.
I can see you. I can see
You
you.
can see
Some
me?
technical
That's
errors
fine.
sometimes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's fine. Um, my idea is if you have a job and you have the skills, that's the perfect match for employment. That
Mm,
many jobs don't require uh, a college degree. They need vocational training. They need specialized training. Most
mm,
programmers, uh, technology people are not college graduates. A lot are, but it's not required. Uh, a-
mm.
a- a- and currently, with a college education being so expensive, it really doesn't make sense for a lot of people that want to be in trades or in technical areas to have that expensive training when their job doesn't even require it. So
Absolutely.
I'm in agreement with you that maybe more intensive technical training for specialized jobs is much better than a broad-based education that is not applicable to the tasks that you actually have to do. When I previously was an accountant and
Mm,
before I went to business school. So I learned about accounting in college, but the actual job that I did in auditing financial statements did not have a
yeah,
whole lot to do with what I learned in most of my college classes. So,
yeah.
you know, could somebody have been trained specifically to do my accounting job without having a college degree? Of course they could. Uh,
Mm,
Plumbers, electricians, many, like I said, programmers, uh, that type of thing, uh, doesn't require a college education. They require the skills
mm.
to complete their jobs. And so in that case, I am totally in agreement with you that skills-based education is is very much needed, and it's very much a thing of today. A lot of college, like I said, has priced themselves way past the value for many people than the value that they're given through their education.
Yeah, absolutely. So skills-based education and skills-based hiring is on the rise. Like, I mean,
Yes,
interestingly, interestingly, like Walmart is such a big company. If they are doing that in their corporate jobs, I mean, other companies also will soon follow, right? And
there
yeah, I
there are
mean,
many companies that if you have a college education and you start with them,
mm,
they do the training and they teach you those special technical skills. But
Yeah.
if you started out with those special technical skills to begin with,
Mm.
then the company wouldn't have to train you. So I definitely agree with you about skills-based hiring. Makes a whole lot of sense. It's a lot more efficient.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah. So for great insights. So for all those watching now, Steve's book will be released on the 2nd of July on Amazon and the Kindle version. So y'all can pre-order it now itself, the book, which is available. So it doesn't matter what job you're in, right? So you can either be a technician or you can either be a doctor or an engineer, that's fine. So Steve's book will help you and it will give you immense knowledge and it will give you the fundamentals of MBA and some key theories. So you can learn many things from it, right? So Steve,
Uh-huh.
any important message you'd like to give all the people who seek motivation?
Oh my gosh, motivation. I think, just listening to us talk, I think may spur in our listeners other things to do more research, to keep an open mind. Uh, the 10-day MBA, I believe, will help people uh,
Mm,
to have many skills, like the skills-based training is in
yeah.
that book. And it's very, the updated version will be available in July. And it just shows you that, just like your podcast and
Mm,
many other things, it takes a will to have the ambition to make things
mm,
happen. And as long as you believe in your subject or your dream and you are properly skilled and have the opportunities, you should take them.
absolutely. So Steve, thank you very much for taking time
All righty.
and doing this podcast with us.